Good. So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'll call the Planning and Zoning Commission Board meeting to order. This board will hear the items tonight and make recommendations. Thank you, Terry. And then the Jones County Board of Commissioners will make a final decision on September the 2nd. So this board recommends the commissioners make the final decision. First item of business tonight is approval of our July 21st minutes. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Is there any old business?
No, ma'am.
All right, so first item of new business tonight is Mr. Paul, is it Chiefs? Chiefs, is requesting a conditional use to allow a single-family dwelling with metal siding. The property is located at 240C Plenitude Church Road, and it consists of 1.32 acres, which are zoned rural residential. Mr. Chiefs, would you come up and tell us a little bit about your project, please?
All right, how y'all doing today? Actually, it's both properties. There's two properties there,
How many homes are you planning on erecting?
just the one.
So we're only discussing the one property that the home is being placed on.
Okay, all right. And that is the 240C. Yeah, it's just, I bought the house, or the property, and demoed the double wide that was there. Putting the house up next door to my son, that way I can be there with my granddaughter and all, and that's really what it's about. It's just gonna be a small house inside of a garage, like a barn dominium type thing.
Is there anybody here in opposition to this request? Then I have questions from the board members for Mr. Chiefs. What kind of siding do you plan to use, sir? Is it just gonna be basic metal siding? Is it gonna have any decorative?
It's basically just regular colors. I'm gonna do it in white and, probably black trim around the doors and the, porch and all.
So will you have any exterior wood accents of any kind? Is the porch gonna be wood?
No, it's gonna be the same as, it's gonna resemble the house itself.
Do you have any pictures of the material you plan to use by chance?
Who do you need to see it? This is basically the building. That's not a,
So there are no other pictures? Oh, there
yeah,
is.
that's not a permanent, or a drawing of it, that's just what we drew up a while back, I mean, it's not a drawing to build off of.
All right, would you share that with them on that side, please? So any questions from that? Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
So you have a recommendation of approval, sir, and that will go to the Board of Commissioners on the 2nd of September for their final decision.
All right, then we just meet back here on the second.
Yes, sir. Back here
Okay.
at 6 o'clock on the 2nd.
All right,
All right,
thank you.
thank you. Second item tonight is Mr. Leroy Mahoney, is that right? Who is requesting a conditional use to allow a single wide. The property is located at 505 Mountain Springs Road, and it consists of 2.01 acres zoned agricultural rural. So, what have you got going on there, sir?
Actually, I purchased the property maybe 3-4 years ago, and it was a single wide there, when I purchased the property. And that's what I, was wanting to go back with a small single wide. That'll be okay.
All right. Is there anybody here who wants to speak in support?
That's my wife.
I know. I was teasing her.
A support.
Well, I don't know she's your wife, but I know she was with you, so. Is there anybody,
She's been at Lincoln
is there anybody here in opposition? Does the board have questions for Mr. Mahoney?
You plan on going with a new structure or a used structure?
I want to do a new structure.
Is there anything in place already about bringing in single wides? Do they have to be new?
No. We have an age restriction, June 15th, 1976. We do have standards that the used home has to meet. They have to post a $750 bond, and upon completion of installation of the home and satisfying those standards, then that bond is released to the customer.
Any other questions?
I was letting him know he didn't necessarily.
Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
So you also have a recommendation of approval, sir, that will come back to the commissioners on the 2nd of September here for a final decision.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, item number 3 tonight is a proposal by the Jones County Board of Commissioners to begin the text amendment process to create sections 32, 24, 73.13.9, and 96.7 of the Comprehensive Land Development Resolution. Purpose of this amendment is to allow data centers as a conditional use in the C1 district. The floor is open for discussion. I will share that the second handout you have, the data centers one that Tim brought in. This is from a county commissioner up in Monroe County. He and the Public Works Director from Monroe County recently visited Lowndes County, Virginia, which according to his comment was the data center capital. He said there are like 70-something operating data centers with 40-something more planned. And because of the recent, activity in Monroe County on data centers, they took a trip up there to visit. And so I met him in a totally different setting on a totally different mission, but he brought up data centers in that meeting. So I took the opportunity to ask him if he would share some feedback from what they learned on their trip to Virginia. And so what you've got here are the comments that he brought back from that meeting. So this is what Virginia gave him as information based on their experiences with data centers. So I thought that would be helpful to have, as well as the information that Tim has provided for us in his staff report. I noticed there are some differences in noise things and height, building heights. There are a few differences from what are in Tim's recommendations, but just so you know, that's the origin of this information. So how best to attack this, Mr. Director? Item by item, or?
Staff report was pretty comprehensive. There's recommended changes we had the sample verbiage that was put out initially. Then after working on it, just that more things came to light. So you've got my comments in red in the staff report. Staff's recommendation is to incorporate those changes into the verbiage and have that as the final recommended final product. I didn't see this until 30 minutes ago. I have not had time to digest it. Looking at it quickly, about half of the items discussed in here are covered by our sample ordinance. We do not get into generation, which they're talking about here. I don't know what the concerns about generation are, and I don't have any background on that. If it's noise, we're already covering that. The other thing they talked about in this was some architectural standards for the building. We're requiring a 100-foot buffer, so nobody's going to see these buildings. So I don't know if we'd want to add design standards like this to a building that's not visible to the public. Just a couple of initial thoughts. They do have a 60-foot height restriction here. We're at 75 in the sample ordinance right now. My only concern there is that height doesn't create a problem for the fire department. I don't know what their maximum capacity is, and so that might be something that we would want to visit if they had comment. I have not reached out to the fire department for comment.
And I did go visit the site up in Social Circle, the large facility up there. They would not allow, the security folks would not allow me to get out of the car on that side of the street. I was required to go back across the public street to a parking lot, or to a driveway that went into an area that was not developed. So I was standing probably 3 football fields away from the nearest side of the building. And noise-wise, it would bother me, but I live in the country where there's nothing. So that was just that constant hum. It was not horrible, but it's a constant hum that, you know, I saw in your report, it's whatever level it was.
I took some sound readings there, and I was getting about 60 decibels standing there, and the only time I can hear it when there was nothing else going on. If there was the slightest breeze or any vehicular traffic, I could not hear the data center. And that was getting above that 60 decibel threshold. Right now, the threshold we've got in here is at 55 dB at the property line. And also, there's some recommendations to consider, do we want to drop that even lower? I would be very curious to see one of these facilities at operation at night when it's dead quiet. I just hadn't got up the gumption to go up there at 2 in the morning and see what it sounded like. But
Yeah, I was trying to listen to it over a lot of road noise because there are other installations past that. And so while the traffic was not going into the data center, it was going by me. So I was having to deal with traffic noise as well as trying to pick out what am I listening to across the road. And they didn't have buffering. I mean, you're standing there at the street looking down into this big complex that has security fences with basically nothing between you and the building. So there was nothing there to create any kind of block. It did have I guess its own power substation down on 278 with this monster power line that comes off over 278 onto the side road where the data center is located. So it's, you know, I guess that's its power generation source. It was not on site, it was down on a public highway, I guess because it's a public utility. And then I went to visit this little site down in Sandersville, which is in an industrial area right beside a railroad track. And I went personally up to Social Circle, so I was in a private vehicle with no, you know, wherewithal to say anything except I'm from Jones County and I'm interested in a data center because we're gonna look at one. Down there, I was riding in a state car because I was down there on a state meeting, and I got pulled over on a public street and asked what I was doing there. So they're very protective about their spots, and I explained what I was, you know, that I was just there to listen. And that facility is small and very, very loud, and Tim explained to me that's the crypto something or other type. And it is not anything you'd want anywhere close to you. So being in an industrial location is a good thing for it, and it's excluded in what we're proposing here, that kind of setup. So that's my observations for what they're worth.
I have a question, talking about the buffer. What if over time that buffer dies away?
The ordinance requires that the buffer be maintained.
Okay. Do we still want to put some architectural guidelines in there as well? So if that does happen and they don't fulfill those needs, that it's not just an eyesore?
If that's what we want to do, that is perfectly within our purview.
I'm just asking.
Yes, sir. I don't know.
I noticed that we are talking about allowing alternative power sources
Yes.
on site, separate from, I guess, commercial power sources.
That's correct.
And that was one of the things that I noticed Monroe County, if I'm reading this right, Monroe County is saying don't do.
Yeah.
I would like to know why.
Yeah.
I don't have
and I don't know any whys, you know, this
Well, if
is
they
all
get
I
a
can-
power outage on the grid, that should be the backup. Is that what we're talking about?
No.
No?
This is, if they choose to put in their, let's say Georgia Power says they can't supply, then they could put in their own generation.
Okay,
They could
good.
build their own power plant.
Okay.
Because the
Or they
power,
could do solar with batteries if they chose to do that.
the power demand is significant for one of these facilities.
It's incredible.
And from what I was reading that you sent to us, what happens in Jones County or any county around us can affect the power grid because we are not sole sourced, I guess. Am I saying that right?
Sure, if they build this in Wilkinson County, we'll feel the same impact than if it was built in Jones County,
Power-wise.
right?
I got a printout. Did you get my email?
I did.
Basically, this is just one bullet about, this is a North American Data Center Trends H2, which I'm assuming is a handout too, but it's 2 years old, 2023. And under market trends, one of the bullets that I highlighted was this: Georgia Power is having or announcing power delays of up to 36 months on substation build-outs to keep up with the data centers. And I would imagine that's still going on.
I'm sorry, say that again?
This is a quote, that Georgia Power has been announcing power delays of up to 36 months on substation build-outs. So Georgia Power is behind the power curve of trying to keep up with the data centers.
Okay,
That's the way I read it.
yeah. And what about rural electric corporations? I would assume they would have,
They don't I don't know of any generation they do. Just
They
like
buy
the EMCs,
everything.
do they do any generation?
Some of them do, some of them don't. I don't think Truck County does that.
I'm not aware of
I'm
any.
not aware of it.
so in our immediate area, it would still be Georgia Power or Southern Company that's
So,
having to produce the power. But that would be a power company decision to say we can't do this? If Jones County said, hello, we can, we approve this, then Georgia Power would have to step up and say, we can't supply the power? Is that how that would
Probably
work?
the opposite of that. They're probably talking to Georgia Power first to
First.
see, is this site feasible? And then, once they got
They
all
come
that,
back.
then they come to us. Because this is poking the bear and, and then they find out they can't have power. They wasted all that effort on this side.
The other concerns that struck me would be light, and I saw where you were talking about moonlight level lighting and the way it needs to be deflected and protected, that amount of light. And then the third thing that struck me would be the traffic during construction, that was a question I made to myself, did I write that, about how,
I'll just mention, I went to Fayetteville. There's a large data center there under construction. They've got one building completed, and it looked like they were building multiple more. And there must have been 350 cars and people just coming and going, and it was quite the bustle of activity for that construction project.
And you proposed a traffic management clause. My question to myself was, do we need to include in here how far in advance that traffic management plan is presented? As in, they can't walk in the door, they can't walk in the door a month before they want to start and say, here's my traffic management plan. They need to give us some warning, or no?
What
More
would we
warning.
do with a warning?
It would give us better time to decide whether we could manage the traffic, or what demands that would put on the county to manage the traffic, road-wise.
Perhaps rather than during construction, this should say during the application phase, they present that?
I'm just thinking we need a lot of lead time on that, because I think the impact could be huge.
I think if they came to my department and said, here's our traffic management plan, I'd go, okay. And because I don't have a traffic management team, so we wouldn't do anything with that information. Whereas if they presented it at the application phase and said, okay, part of this facility we want to build, and here's our traffic management plan, and then you could take that into consideration as part of the application process for the conditional use?
I think so. I think that, this reads to me like we would have already said, okay, you can do this.
Yes.
And they would then come to us and say, here's my plan. And I think that puts us behind the 8 ball as a county, trying to be sure that we've covered our bases with it.
So who would be responsible? Let's just say they had some small road that they've tore up. Who's gonna be responsible for fixing that as well?
So we require posting of a bond for equipment access onto a construction site if they're accessing from a county road. So they would facilitate through permitting, and then if they didn't maintain the road properly, the bond would be called in.
I don't know, seems to me like we're kind of overlooking the two main things we should be looking at, and that's the utility. Our power, our water, those two very important things. I know it doesn't take much to knock your power out in this little county. I mean, where I live, it could, 2 drops of rain on your window and your power goes out, or your thunders, your power goes out. And so it's already a strain on the grid. You can imagine what kind of strain is going to be on the grid, and they power up one of these babies. And then you got water, you got that to be concerned about, and water is already a problem for Jones County. I think that's the 2 main things we should be looking at, is the water and the power consumption. I know noise is important and all these other things that we've been talking about here, but I just feel like the 2 main things that we should be looking at is our utilities, power and our water.
Just to piggyback on what you're saying, Hal, is there apparently is some concern about the cost of the power supply on the rise, getting spread out to the residential consumers to help pay for it. And this is another news release called the Capitol Beat News Service from July 3rd, 2025. And I'll quote here, it says, also this year, Senator Chuck Hofstetler, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, introduced legislation to prohibit utilities in Georgia from passing on the costs that provide electricity to data centers, to their residential and small business customers. The bill cleared the Senate Regulatory Industries and Utilities Committee, but failed to reach the Senate floor after lobbyists representing utilities, including Georgia Power, opposed it. So there is real concern about the cost of the power getting passed on to the residents that live around it, or the whole community.
Whole state,
Yeah.
wherever it goes in the state,
Yeah.
it's going to impact.
And the cost, yeah, that's a definite concern for everybody, I'm sure. Power's high enough as it is, but just being able to maintain the grid, just being able to supply us what we need, what this county needs, are they gonna be able to do it when you already have problems, big problems here? And I can imagine the kind of problems this is gonna cause. with our, trying to supply the citizens of this county with their power. Tri-County, Tri-County, they don't generate it. It's Georgia Power that does the generation of the power.
That's my
Is that
understanding,
correct?
yes.
So
I'm not
Tri-County just buys their electricity?
Yes.
Okay. And,
Comes in on a large transmission line, then
Yeah.
it goes into Tri-County's distribution network.
right. I don't know, I just think that's two big problems right there, water and power, and the other things are, yes, they're important too, but
I could speak to water. We require what's called a closed loop system, so once the system's filled, they don't use water, with the exception of what might be needed for routine maintenance and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So they're not a large water customer over time.
you know, the water is not as big a deal as the power itself. The electricity is the main problem, or is a potential big problem, I think. That's just my opinion, but just knowing what we face already in this county and knowing we got some idea what these things are gonna, problems they're gonna pose is just, it's scary to me.
Another thing that, I had a concern about is we're hanging our hat on this C1 and 400 acres, driving it to a conditional use request, right? Because we don't currently have anything zone C1 bigger than that.
Correct.
So what if down the road, we end up with a property zoned C1 that's 450 acres? Then somebody could put a data center there without it having to come through review?
No, it's
No.
still a conditional use.
Okay. Then I'm not reading this right.
It's C1 with a conditional use.
But somewhere 400 acres plays in that.
You have to have 400 acres to request a data center.
But it would be a conditional use no matter what.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, got that. All right, and the other thing is the height.
Could I, since we're there, touch on
Yeah,
that?
sure.
The thought process is, if somebody came in, applied for a data center, got approved, zone C1, and then the deal falls through, they can't get power, so they back out. Well, instead of having 400 acres of M2 property sitting there, it'd just be C1, which is a lot less of an intensive use, rather than this large industrially zoned piece of property with all the things that you could do in C1, you'd be limited to what would be allowed in C1 rather than M2.
I understand that part.
Okay.
I got hung up on the confusion about 400 acres. If we had a C1 bigger than 400 acres, I was reading that there was no requirement for conditional use. It could just go.
No.
Okay.
Section 73.13 are the conditional uses is a conditional use section of C1.
Okay. And the other thing, if we're gonna go with 60 feet or 75 feet or whatever feet we come up with on building height, while we may require a buffer, it'll be a long time before you find a tree or grow a tree that's gonna cover 75 feet, so,
They're gonna have to, our ordinance requires that the effective visual screen be provided within 1 year of planting, and it's gotta be sufficient height to screen activities on the property. So if you've got a 75-foot tall building, they're going to have substantial existing vegetation to even be able to use that facility. If it's a clear-cut piece of property, then it's not gonna qualify for a data center,
okay,
unless they have some way to plant 75-foot tall trees.
right. You got enough money, I guess you could, but,
Yes, ma'am.
okay, I think those were my questions to myself. So what do we need to do? Do y'all have more questions? I feel like I've been asking all the questions.
I don't think so. As long as we stick with the stipulations that Tim provided us with.
So the next step is for us to do what, sir?
Make your
Direct-
recommendation. Recommendation as the original, recommendation with the staff recommendations, or any other changes you all would choose to make.
So do I have a motion? Yes, Tim.
Just mentioned, right now, somebody could walk in today and apply for a data center in the M2 district, and we have nothing telling them what to do. There's no guidelines. So we would have to try to come up with all of this, and as part of their application process, what are those standards going to be? At least this, we're in front of them, where we've got some thought behind what should our standards be to facilitate these kind of operations.
So this would apply to the industrial
Yeah.
sites as well?
Yes, anything C1, C2, or industrial districts, they would have to apply for a conditional use, and it would have to be on a piece of property, 400 acres.
And I would assume if we recommend to go forward, however we recommend, the commissioners would still have the ability in their meeting, just like on anything else we recommend, they would have the ability to add their changes.
Yes, ma'am.
So we're recommending what goes to them, just like we're recommending the two items that we just heard. We're not making the final decision. Because I, like Tim, am curious about why Virginia says don't allow them to have any other kinds of power supply. And I didn't have a chance to talk to the commissioner again, so I just got this today too.
I wonder if it's a revenue source issue.
I don't know. But I noticed that immediately when I was reading it, so. But he went up there, Mr. Commissioner Davis, I believe it is, Lamarcus Davis from Monroe County. I mean, they were concerned enough that they sent him and their Director of Public Works to Virginia to look this over and figure out the good, the bad, and the ugly of what's going on up there, because as many as they've got, they've learned some stuff, you would assume. And this is what they came back with.
Yeah, good to know everything that they've learned, because somebody's going to come and ask us one day, hey, how did you handle that?
Uh-huh.
Well, on the power end of it, it seemed like to me that Georgia Power is gonna have to give some kind of assurances as to whether or not they can provide what needs to be provided for this thing in the way of power, whereas it doesn't have a negative impact on our county, on us.
Keep
I mean,
passing the
they gotta give
cost
us
on.
something. I mean, you know,
Would that come as part of an actual application that Georgia Power would have to speak then, or would that be part of what needs to be considered right here, which is just an ordinance that says we can consider it under these circumstances? Does that make sense?
Well, right now, we're dealing with hypotheticals. If
Right.
somebody was in front of us, then we would say, okay, this location, and has Georgia Power told you that you can have this electricity
Right.
at that time?
That's what I'm saying, is that would come after we have at least put in place that they could consider, we could consider it, right? Or we would consider it.
Right, as part of the application process, if that was something we wanted to require them to, I don't know how that would look, but I mean, a simple question during the hearing to that effect. Or, I don't know, I've not seen one of these applications, so I don't know what would be involved with them.
It would be really disheartening to find out 5 years from now that everybody, excuse me, speaking for Jones County, has got much higher electricity bills because of it. You know, it actually did get passed on to the residential consumers as opposed to the industry having to pay for it. I don't know how you would,
If it locates in Wilkinson County, that cost is coming to us.
I'm sorry?
If it locates in Wilkinson County, that cost is coming to us.
Or Monroe County, or wherever our grid
Really?
is covered from.
Yeah.
And Monroe County's already got one at Roland Road.
Yeah,
They declined the one on 41, or at least the one that was being fought at 41. I think the site was there at 475 and 75, because that huge tract of farmland was up for sale, and that's where all the signs were that I saw opposing it. And Commissioner Davis did say that was denied.
I don't know if y'all saw, if y'all saw the news this evening at 6 o'clock with Twiggs County's talking about it too.
And then, is it Lamar County has got a site that's
Yeah, on
already
70.
under construction?
on 75.
So the grid impact is in process.
Yeah, it is.
Hmm.
So no matter what we think about this personally, we have to have some standards in place.
Yeah,
And that's what we're doing.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
And then you deal with the application specifics
yeah.
when it comes to us. Did you talk to Georgia Power, and what are we gonna do on this road, and what is your maintenance, traffic maintenance, construction plan?
Yeah.
Well, they're coming. They're here.
I was just doing some quick reading on why regulate the generation on site.
Did you find anything?
No, just environmental concerns. It doesn't, which it doesn't make sense. It's not like they would be allowed to produce power dirty when everybody else has got to produce it clean. I don't understand.
It would seem like it would be a backup source only in the event, because certainly it's cheaper to buy it off the grid. You would think.
If it's available.
Yeah.
So
I was
maybe-
reading, well, I was reading yesterday that they put the processors through work even when there's nothing to do to maintain a constant demand.
On the power system.
Yeah, to maintain that 350 megawatt consumption. They'll have the just running a routine. They call it "Don't blow up the power plant" button. They push that, and so that at least it's doing something, because they got to keep that consumption level.
So maybe the alternative power generation is in case Georgia Power says, I can't do this. Could they, could a data center generate enough power to run itself without public power?
Yes.
So that may explain why that's there, and I don't know why Virginia said no, but that may be a way for data centers to get around Georgia Power saying, I can't do it. And then they say, we'll do it with an alternative power source. So back to the critical question, do I have a recommendation or not?
But, you know, excuse me, the hang up for me is I'm just not educated enough on, you start reading this stuff and go down a rabbit hole really quick, and it blows your mind. The what ifs. And I, like I said, I don't want to have it on my conscience. Somebody says, well, we all let it slide in, and here we are. This is what's going on.
Was he gonna fall
But-
off? I was wondering about that. So,
Well, I'm not an electrical engineer, so, it's kind of above my pay grade too a little bit here. I'm mostly concerned with that, electrical consumption and how Georgia Power is going to supply the needs for all this, and it seemed like to me that they're going to have to give some guarantees or something.
All right, so I have a question here. What we're trying to do is basically set a base standard, correct? Okay, and that base standard is what we have before us right now, correct? Okay, we can build on to this at any time, correct?
Yes, but this would be if somebody's looking at doing something, they're gonna look at our ordinance and say, okay, their ordinance lets us do what we want, or no, we can't deal with their ordinance, we're going somewhere else. So if we wanted to change it, if they applied today and then we change it tomorrow, well, they get to work under what they applied under.
Correct, okay. But this is just a base, pretty much standard that we need because we don't have anything at all, correct?
If we want to try to address and be in front of this, if we just want to react whenever we get an application, then we don't need this. They'll just apply for M2,
Well, it's better to be ahead of the game.
they'll apply somewhere, 400 acres, M2, and then they'll try to figure this out at that time.
Which means we could be looking at a spot zoning request in the north end of Jones County for M2. Or the south end of Jones County for M2, an open farmland where there's 400 acres. Of course, you could be looking at it for C1 too. Also,
Yes, ma'am.
because if they're not going in the industrial park, we really don't have any zoned land. Cherokee Products is what?
That is industrial, but
That's
it's
industrial.
not this large. The quarries, they'd get this large.
So for this to happen, you're looking at unused land sitting in Jones County somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's all rural or agricultural.
With our buffering requirements, it's gonna have to be timberland.
So it's gonna be spot in the middle of somewhere that this kind of stuff doesn't exist right now. So from a transportation standpoint, there's not a lot of traffic in and out of data centers. Is it important for a data center to be near high volume traffic?
I don't know the answer to
Capacity.
that. I don't know the answer to that.
Because I know up on social circles up on 278, right off 278, which is right off I-20, just a little ways. Rumble Road is sitting smack on 75. The little one down in Sandersville is sitting right off Fall Line Freeway. The one in Barnesville, I have not seen it, but Tim says it's on 75, so I don't know if what's driving them to there, my question is what's driving them to there, the access to the interstate because of the construction requirements, or is it access to transportation for something else that we don't understand at this point? Or is it because the zoning's already existing there and they can just go in? Go for it.
My first thought is noise.
That was my thought, I was about to say
I mean,
that.
the
It's near
noise-
the interstate, which is already noisy. There's gonna be
You're not-
not as many complaints about it because there's already noise.
Hey, you
And
said
next to an
right.
interstate, I bet it's 75 decibels all day long. To easily camouflage one of these facilities.
It's got me to thinking about the Piedmont and Hitchity and those areas where people visit and take their families and such. Can you require them to have an environmental impact study prior to setting up next door to National Forest?
We can require whatever we want.
That's just
This
something
is
to think
our
about.
opportunity to address that.
Well,
Well, why don't we add that?
Can you add it in? Add that in.
Really and truly, it'd probably be better if we did have an environmental study done on it prior to anyway. Be sure that the ground's gonna be, sustainable for it, to hold it up, basically.
well, that would include archaeological findings too, right? In case there's any Native American heritage in the area that they didn't want to be disturbed.
Are those covered by environmental impact studies?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think they are, but I may be wrong.
I haven't dealt with them, so I don't know.
Like I said, these are things that I don't know, I'm just asking the questions. But I think an environmental impact study is something we need to, well, they can always write it off if we're wrong. Especially as it applies to our public lands.
Anything else? I mean, in my head, this is Arlene talking, this is not planning and zoning. And Arlene doesn't want to see a data center right down the road from Arlene, you know? But I think it's better for us to have at least some terminology in our zoning regulations that's a baseline than to have nothing. And that's kind of where we are right now, we have nothing. So this is at least a baseline that if we have nothing and somebody wants to come here, they have no reason to think it can't happen because we haven't said anything that would make them think it can't happen. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, the whole reason I come to Georgia is because of the tax incentives. And Governor Kemp's already vetoed the legislation and do away with the tax incentives. So if what we're doing is trying to make it suitable for our county, fine and well, let them bounce on to somewhere else that's more rural and they don't really care that much. But all along of here, year after year, there's always that revenue thing, okay? So what do we stand to gain from tax revenues? And then that's the thing that you can't put your finger on, I don't think, but you can't say, in this document, we expect such and such tax revenue in return, right?
I've never seen anything like that in the zoning ordinance.
We're talking apples and oranges for that, right?
And I've never seen a zoning ordinance say, as long as you pay us this much money, you can do what you want. That's really serious quid pro quo stuff there. I don't know how that
Okay.
would fly.
Okay, I'm just thinking outside the box.
Well, we could at least put I know from a historic preservation standpoint, archaeological history standpoint, when DOT is about to do something in an area that's been designated potentially to have potential sites, then they have to send out letters and do all kinds of stuff. I don't know what that study's called, but as president of the Historical Society, I get those letters periodically asking if there are things that need to be considered in this particular location because they're about to do this particular kind of work, like bridge widening, road widening, that kind of stuff. So I don't know if in DOT's guidelines there's terminology that would tell us this is what it's called. In addition to environmental, it's bigger than that. It's total impact, preservation, archaeological, environmental, green space. I mean, I don't know. Is that the kind of thing y'all are asking to have added?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay, is there anything else? With the understanding that Tim would work on language to add that, would we get to see that before it goes to the commissioners, or you just add?
Not if you make your motion to approve tonight, no ma'am. It would go straight to the commissioners. If you table for further discussion next month, then it would come back to y'all.
All right.
I would move, if you're asking for a motion, I would move to table this thing until, I think there should be an environmental study done. I think there should. We don't even know where it's gonna be. We have no idea where it's gonna be, so how are we supposed to make any kind of recommendation about this stuff? We don't even know where it's gonna be, you know? What are they gonna do? What kind of impacts it gonna have on what area? We don't know.
But that would be true of any of our zoning regulations. We
Well-
write the regulation to apply to wherever somebody might come to us, and then we deal with the details of that particular location when it's presented, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
So this is a generic guideline for anywhere in the county. What could be anywhere in the county. And then if the application comes, you whittle away at the specifics of that location and that application.
All right, so if we say, okay, we need to have an environmental study done, okay, for where? You see what I'm trying to say? You want an environmental study done For where? For the whole county, for this part of the county, for,
For wherever that application would impact.
right, we don't know.
No, but the requirement that there has to be an environmental study would be part of the baseline that someone who wanted to apply, if Kyle wanted to build a data center,
Yeah, okay.
Kyle would read and say, okay, I gotta do an environmental study as part of this if I choose to apply.
Yeah. All right, I see what you're saying.
Do y'all wanna make a motion to go forward, or you wanna make a motion to table?
What do we stand to gain by tabling this? I'm with you on this, and how can we get smarter and more educated on this between now and the next time we meet?
How can we get more info?
Yeah,
Got me.
I don't know either.
I don't know. Internet? I mean, I don't know. I'm not trying to be funny, but I don't know.
I'm with you.
But in the meantime, though, if somebody was to say, come in here at the end of the week and apply, we don't have a guideline to go by.
Well, that's true too.
We don't have nothing.
That's true.
So if we go ahead and adopt this tonight, and then if we could add the environmental study back to it after this is kind of a baseline, can we do that?
Will you make a recommendation to go forward with that added? Tim, go.
Yeah, I can add a section in my staff recommendation, 97.19, that says an environmental assessment study shall be presented with an application. If it needs to be more verbose than that, I will do some research and see what something like that looks like. I just don't know. I'm pretty ignorant on that. I don't deal with that. So I'll try to come up with some decent verbiage, and maybe, you know, I'm sure there's boilerplate for that kind of thing that's floating around out there, and I can find it and plug it in on that section.
I just feel like we need a baseline now
Yeah.
or something.
So is that a motion?
I'll make a motion to set it as the baseline. The documentation that we have as of right now.
With the addition of
With
the
the addition of the
environmental?
environmental study.
Do I have a second to
second
that?
that.
Third.
All right. Is there any more discussion?
Hang on.
Tim?
Is the recommendation to take the original verbiage or the verbiage with the amendments by the staff?
That's
The
Tim's
amendments by
staff
the
report
staff.
with the addition of all the red caveats.
Well, I was gonna say something about that earlier. I think it should be with these recommendations.
Yes,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
yes.
So would you amend your motion?
I'll amend the motion to go with the,
Text as
yes,
identified in the
right,
staff
exactly,
report
in the staff report.
and the addition of the environmental
Study.
study.
That is correct.
Do we have a second? Still, any other discussion? All in favor?
Yeah.
So. Anybody got a bottle of wine?
More than one.
No,
Okay.
it's scotch, 2 fingers.
Scotch would be better right now.
Early, 2 fingers.
2 fingers up. All right, I can deal with that. All right, comments from the audience? We have none, audience. Comments from the board?
Make a motion to adjourn.
That's a fine comment.
So,
Did you have the bottle in the truck?
No, I quit drinking 2 years ago.
All right, so I have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor? Thank y'all. Consider